morning from New York. Good afternoon, good evening. Thank you so much for joining today's online briefing to stakeholders on the preparations and providing updates on the 2022 UN Ocean Conference. My name is Lotta Tähtinen, and I'm the Chief of the Outreach and Partnerships Branch in the Division for Sustainable Development Goals of UN DESA. And I'm very honored to welcome all of you to this online briefing, which is organized by UN DESA as the Secretariat of the 2022 UN Ocean Conference. Before we start, please let me make a few housekeeping announcements. First of all, please note that this briefing will be recorded. The recording, the presentation, and all relevant information will be made available on the website, and we will also share it with all the registered participants. We are live streaming this briefing on Facebook on our Sustainable Development platform. There was a question in the chat box whether there will be interpretation during this briefing. Unfortunately, we do not have interpretation. This event is conducted in English only. We would be grateful if all speakers could please keep your cameras on while speaking. And we also ask all participants to please keep your microphones muted when you are not speaking. For those of you who are joining us, our participants, we encourage you to please use the chat box to ask questions or to share any comments or suggestions. When doing so, please indicate your name, organization, and country when typing in your question or comment. So let me now give a quick overview of today's agenda. We will start by hearing opening remarks by Ambassador Peter Thomson, who is the UN Secretary General's Special Envoy for the Ocean. We will then hear also remarks by the two co-hosts, the representatives of the two co-hosts of the conference, namely Portugal and Kenya. And following these opening remarks, we will deliver presentations about the upcoming Ocean Conference, including details about the program, outcomes, voluntary commitments, and how, in particular, how stakeholders can register to attend this conference. We expect there to be time for specific questions from the audience that we look forward to answering. As you can see, we have a fairly full agenda today, so we would be grateful to our presenters to please keep within the indicated time limit so that we have enough time for questions and answers. So dear colleagues, without further ado, let me now please give the floor to our first speaker, Ambassador Peter Thomson, the UN Secretary General's Special Envoy for the Ocean. Ambassador Thomson, you have the floor, please.
Thank you, Lotta. Please give me the thumbs up if you can hear me clearly.
We can hear you well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us on today's online stakeholder briefing that's been so thoughtfully arranged for us by UN DESA. The UN Ocean Conferences exist to support the implementation of SDG 14, our goal, our global goal, conserve and sustainably use the ocean's resources. Now, these are the greatest occasions for the world to take stock and hear the truth about the state of the ocean. The conferences engender transformative commitments and science-based solutions to overcome the problems that we in the ocean face. And as we all know, these problems exist in legions, but so too do the solutions. And the UN Ocean Conference represents the best opportunity to launch them. The UN Ocean Conferences are universal occasions in that they are mandated by the United Nations General Assembly, and therefore they represent all of us. Because they are UN conferences, they're subject to well-established rules and regulations within which the UN Secretariat must work. To some, these rules are frustrating and complicated, but that's the nature of operating a global institution representing the multitudinous aspirations of 193 different countries. Representatives of the UN Secretariat are present with us today to answer any questions about these rules and regulations as they pertain to the UN Ocean Conference, and to guide stakeholders towards achievement of their aims for successful participation in the Lisbon Conference. So again, I thank them for making themselves available to us today, knowing how busy they are. Ladies and gentlemen, if you include the special events being held on the weekend of 25th and 26th June, we're only 52 days away from the commencement of the UN Ocean Conference in Portugal. Therefore, this stakeholder briefing is very timely, giving us all a last push to get our houses in order for the conference. I say last push because, for instance, the deadline for applying to have a side event included in the conference is May 8th, which is this coming weekend. We all know how important side events are for creating the excitement, for presenting solutions, for forming partnerships, and allowing special interests to convey their special messages. I know of some quality side event proposals that are still in gestation, so I urge you all to encourage your associates to get these side event applications completed and submitted this week. There's not the same urgency on voluntary commitments, but the call has been made by member states of the United Nations for new voluntary commitments. The register is open, so if you have yet to make your commitments, why hold back? As stakeholders in the UN Ocean Conference, your voluntary commitments should be there for all to see, that you may be amongst those in the world who are seeking success for SDG 14's noble aims. I said before, and I say again, that the first UN Ocean Conference held at the United Nations campus in New York in 2017 was a global game changer in creating awareness of the need for ocean action. And I firmly believe that the second UN Ocean Conference in Lisbon will be another global game changer, this time in terms of launching a great fleet of science-based, partnership-bound solutions to take us to SDG 14's achievement by 2030. Stakeholders, whether you represent non-governmental organizations, civil society organizations, academic institutions, the scientific community, the private sector, philanthropic organizations, or local and regional governments, you have an integral role to play in the success of the Lisbon Conference. The simple fact is that without your combined thoughts, advocacy, innovation, and energy, we would be on a fool's errand. And so we're all connected on this quest. Never feel that you're on your own, battling the inevitable consequences of human lassitude and greed. You are not, for we are many, and together we will reverse the decline of the ocean's health. We will ensure that succeeding generations will be able to derive the joy and sustenance that we have enjoyed from the ocean. We'll gather in Lisbon in less than 2 months to share our ideas and chart the way to a better future for all. And I look forward to meeting you all there, and I thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Thompson, for those inspiring remarks and for the rallying call you really just made to stakeholders to come to Lisbon prepared to make voluntary commitments and to actively participate there. We need you all on board. Now, let me give the floor to Ms. Lily Mwangila, Counselor at the Permanent Mission of the Republic of Kenya to the UN, to make some remarks on behalf of Kenya as the co-host of the 2022 UN Ocean Conference. Lily, over to you.
Thank you, Lotta. I hope I'm audible enough. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Thank you all for joining us today. On behalf of my government, Kenya, I take this opportunity to also thank Portugal and the UN Special Envoy for the Ocean and the UN Secretariat for all the ongoing preparations, including organizing this stakeholder briefing. We are honored to be co-hosting the forthcoming UN Ocean Conference with Portugal, and we very much welcome the participation of various stakeholders at the conference. The first Ocean Conference in 2017 was a major success. It raised awareness of the state of the ocean and the many challenges it faces, which saw governments and other stakeholders make significant commitments to support implementation of the Sustainable Development Goal 14. In 2018, Kenya, together with Japan and Canada, co-hosted the first Global Sustainable Blue Economy Conference that focused on the productivity and the sustainability of the ocean and other water bodies. The importance of our ocean and marine resources for growth and development cannot be overstated. They provide livelihoods for millions of people, contribute to food, nutrition, and security, regulate climate, among other benefits. By continuously working together, we can harness the full potential of these resources for economic prosperity while steadfastly protecting and improving ocean health. As the world strives to recover from the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic amidst other global crises, the 2022 UN Ocean Conference can bring about a new generation of concrete, ambitious commitments and forge new, inclusive, and effective partnerships to support the implementation of Goal 14, as well as its interlinkages with other goals of the 2030 Agenda. Kenya and Portugal are committed to working closely with all relevant stakeholders in preparing for the conference and to ensure it delivers on its mandate as entrusted to us. We look forward to seeing you all in Lisbon. Karibuni sana.
Thank you so much, Lily, for those remarks on behalf of Kenya. Let me now invite our second co-host, the representative of Portugal, Ms. Sergio Carvalho, from the Permanent Mission of Portugal to the UN, to make some opening remarks as well. Sergio, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Lotta. Good morning, everybody. I hope you can hear me okay. Let me start by thanking DESA for putting together this briefing, and also thank Kenya and Special Envoy Peter Thompson for participating and also for their support in the preparations for the conference. But most importantly, let me start by thanking all of you for joining this call today and for being interested in the upcoming Ocean Conference and preparing for the conference in Lisbon. I will try to be brief and limit my remarks to three very quick points. The first one, to say that we're very excited to be hosting this conference in Lisbon, but not because of the logistics side of it, but because of the substantive importance that we attach to this gathering, because of the transformative nature we believe a conference like this can have. And we do need such an event. On the face of the urgency facing the ocean, on the face of all the data suggesting that SDG 14 is one of the SDGs that is lagging behind the most in terms of implementation, on the face of what we know today regarding the role that the ocean plays in supporting the implementation of the whole 2030 agenda. So on the face of all of that, we do need to use an occasion like this to scale up ocean action and, in a way, rewrite the way we think about the ocean and act upon the ocean. And my second point has to do with the fact that such rewriting will only happen if it's the product of a coordinated effort by a broad coalition of stakeholders. At its core, the Ocean Conference is a multi-stakeholder conference. It was designed as such and is meant as such because of this very clear understanding that governments alone are not enough, and that only through partnerships involving different categories of stakeholders will be able to make a real difference. And that only through coordinated efforts across different actors, different regions, different sectors, different businesses, different generations even, will be able to get our act together and find solutions for the problems we have, take advantage of the potential of the ocean, and change course towards a more sustainable relationship with the ocean and marine biodiversity. Which leads me to my third and final point, which is basically to say that true to this multi-stakeholder nature, we have been working with UN in order to provide stakeholders with multiple entry points into the conference and multiple avenues for them to leave their mark in the conference. And I believe there's plenty of opportunities for you in Lisbon, both in the formal segments of the conference and on the margins of the conference. And I'm sure our UN colleagues will expand on these opportunities in the plenary, interactive dialogues, voluntary commitments that were already mentioned, side events, special events, and so on. And so I will end by saying that we look forward to having you in Lisbon for the Ocean Conference. And we do look forward to seeing you bring your A game to Lisbon and help making this conference a defining moment for the ocean. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sergio. And again, thank you to Lily for your continued support and your tremendous efforts in making this conference a success. Colleagues, let me now offer a short overview of the 2022 UN Ocean Conference. The conference, which is convened by the UN General Assembly and co-hosted by Portugal and Kenya, will be held under the overarching theme of scaling up ocean action based on science and innovation for the implementation of Goal 14, stocktaking, partnerships, and solutions. This conference will be held fully in person in Lisbon, Portugal, from 27 June to 1 July this year. The expected outcomes of the conference are the following. We expect there to be a brief and concise intergovernmentally agreed declaration, which will be adopted at the end of this conference. The draft declaration is currently under negotiations by the UN General Assembly member states under the able facilitation of the permanent representatives of Denmark and Grenada. And as many of you know, the two co-facilitators have engaged with stakeholders on a number of occasions to seek your inputs and views on this draft outcome. Secondly, there will be a summary report prepared that will capture the outcomes of the conference and the main proceedings. And finally, just like in 2017, the UN Ocean Conference in 2017, we expect there to be a large number of new voluntary commitments by governments, UN system, and other stakeholders in support of SDG 14. And we will be hearing more about these voluntary commitments and how to register those from my colleague Madhu, who will be speaking next. Next slide, please. As mentioned, this Ocean Conference is convened by the UN General Assembly, building on the tremendous success of the 2017 Ocean Conference, which was really shepherded and driven by Ambassador Thompson, and we are very grateful to have you here today with us. Since it is a UN General Assembly conference, the detailed modalities for the conference are outlined by the General Assembly in Resolution 73/292. You can find this resolution as well as other pertinent resolutions, background documents, notes, and member states' contributions on the official website of the conference. And I'm asking my colleagues to share the conference website in the chat box. Next slide, please. As decided by the General Assembly, the Ocean Conference is expected to mobilize a vast number of different partners from various sectors and groups, ranging from governments to intergovernmental organizations, UN system, NGOs, private sector, local regional governments, youth, academia, and many, many others. We are very pleased to let you know that we have opened registration for this conference for eligible stakeholders to attend in person in Lisbon. My colleagues Nayara and Catherine will share more details about this registration process towards the end of this webinar. I would also like to invite all of you to please visit the dedicated stakeholder engagement page of the conference website, where you can also find all relevant information, including of mobilization efforts that have been undertaken so far. Next slide, please. The official program of the conference, which is already posted on the website, will feature opening and closing sessions, a number of formal plenary sessions, as well as 8 thematic interactive dialogues on dedicated themes that the General Assembly has set. These thematic interactive dialogues will all be informed by background notes that will be made available on the conference website very soon. To seek stakeholder inputs to these background notes, UN DESA had conducted an online global stakeholder consultation. You can see the results of these consultations on the conference website, and I see that my colleagues have posted in the chat box a link to the summary report, which summarizes the results and inputs received. In addition to this official program, there's going to be a number of special, high-level special events and many side events which will be held in connection with the conference. To check the most up-to-date information about the conference, again, please visit the conference website, which is being kept up to date on a daily basis. So let me now briefly talk about the 4 high-level special events, which will be organized in connection with the conference to really mobilize key sectors around ocean action. The first of these is the Youth and Innovation Forum, which will be held the weekend prior to the conference from 24 to 26 June in Cascais, in the nearby city Cascais. On June 25th, which is a Saturday, there will be a dedicated forum for local and regional governments taking place in the city of Matosinhos to rally local actors around ocean action. On the 27th of June, there's going to be a high-level symposium on water, which will look at bridging SDG 6 on water and SDG 14. This will be held inside the conference venue in the Altiz Arena in Lisbon. And finally, on the 28th of June, there's going to be a Sustainable Blue Economy and Investment Forum in Cascais, which will seek to mobilize the private sector and the investment community around SDG 14. Over and beyond this, there's going to be a continuously running SDG media zone organized inside the conference venue that will help raise awareness of the broader global public around SDG 14. For more information about these special events, you can see the dedicated website reflected on this screen. And you can also access all this information through the website, including how to register to attend these different events. Let's move to the next slide, please. There's also going to be, as Ambassador Thompson already mentioned, and Sergio as well, a large number of side events that will be hosted during the conference by governments, intergovernmental organizations, UN system, and you, the duly accredited and registered stakeholder entities. Side events can be hosted either in person or virtually, and these in-person side events can be held out either inside the conference venue in Lisbon, which is the Altiz Arena, or in multiple different locations outside of the conference venue in Lisbon. More details about side events and how importantly, how to apply to organize a side event is available on the conference website. Please note that the deadline for submitting an application to host a side event is this coming weekend, 8 May. So please make sure that you submit your side event requests if you have not yet done so by the deadline. And also, please note that we will be giving priority to side events that are being organized by multiple organizations and those that are organized by member states, but again, also side events that are organized by multiple organizations in partnership. Next slide, please. So let me now focus a few words about how stakeholders can make official contributions during the formal proceedings of the conference. There's going to be an opportunity for stakeholders, eligible stakeholders, to make short interventions in person in the plenary meetings, as well as in the interactive dialogues. Please note that there's no possibility to make official statements virtually. All interventions would need to be made in person. We will shortly be launching a dedicated selection process to identify the stakeholders who would be invited to make these official statements. Priority will be given to those stakeholders who are representing, in particular, networks, constituencies, coordinated constituencies, meaning that they would make their interventions on behalf of multiple organizations, including major groups and other stakeholders. Details about how to register your interest to make an official intervention will be shared with the registered stakeholder participants shortly. And with these few brief opening remarks, let me now invite my colleague, Ms. Madhushree Chatterjee, who is the Chief of the Natural Resources and Interlinkages branch in our division for Sustainable Development Goals of UN DESA, to share some updates about the ocean voluntary commitments. Madhu, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Lotta. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. It is my pleasure to be here to give you some updates on the voluntary commitments. At the outset, I would also like to thank my colleague Lotta for organizing this very timely briefing, and of course, Ambassador Thompson and our co-hosts, Portugal and Kenya, for organizing this UN Ocean Conference. Next slide, please. So in terms of voluntary commitments, as many of you will recall, this was one of the key outcomes of the 2017 Ocean Conference and has become one of its most important legacies. These voluntary commitments are commitments that were made during the Ocean Conference and are initiatives that were undertaken by governments, UN system entities, other intergovernmental organizations, regional financial institutions, so on and so forth. They were truly diverse in scope as well as in scale, but the ultimate goal was to enhance implementation of SDG 14. To catalyze and generate new VCs and facilitate collaboration among different actors, thematic multi-stakeholder COAs were launched, and these are already available on our website. There were 9 communities of ocean action, or COAs, if you will. These voluntary commitments followed a SMART criteria, a commitment that is specific, measurable, achievable, resource-based, and with time-based deliverables. That's how we had encouraged commitment holders to make their commitments and register online. So this registration was first opened in 2017 for the UN Ocean Conference then, and it has remained open ever since. Next slide, please. In 2017, we had, during the conference, around 1,380 voluntary commitments. As of now, we have more than 1,700 voluntary commitments registered to date. Next slide, please. Here, I just wanted to show everyone how the registry is accessible via the UN Ocean Conference webpage. And I'm requesting colleagues to also, if they can, put the link in our chat. If you go to this page under participate, you will see voluntary commitments where you can register. Next slide, please. So this is a snapshot of what the page looks like, where you can find all these voluntary commitments. Of course, there are too many to show on the landing page, if you will, but the main thing to look at here are the keywords. There are some search keywords where you can search for various commitments by ocean basin, by communities of ocean action, by SDGs, and by entity types. Next slide, please. So here you can see the platform which says very clearly where to register a commitment. And this is the link which I'm asking colleagues again to share on the site, on the chat, where you can register your voluntary commitment. Next slide, please. And this is an example of what your commitment, when you make it and when you register it, will look like on our webpage. There'll be a description. There'll be a description of SDG 14 targets covered, deliverables and timelines, resources that have been mobilized, progress reports, and feedback. Next slide, please. So now I'd like to give you an update on what DESA has done with these voluntary commitments. We have tried to do assessments of these voluntary commitments to see where we are lagging, what are the areas where we see more commitments, who is making these commitments, and so on and so forth. So far, there have been 3 publications. First, of course, is the report of the conference from 2017, which listed all the commitments made then. Then we have had another in-depth analysis of ocean voluntary commitments to support and monitor their implementation in 2017. And most recently, in November 2021, we released our 3rd assessment. And this assessment really looks at some of the key commitments that have been made so far. It looks like pollution is a good area where people have committed a lot. Science is advancing novel approaches for ocean issues. And of course, there have been new approaches to working together and to enable cross-sectoral ocean governance. Next slide, please. Now, while we have seen that a lot of enthusiasm for making commitments, what we are finding is that reporting on voluntary commitments has been difficult, reporting progress, if you will. Commitments that have not been reported on or where progress has not been reported are likely still making progress, but they have not concluded maybe, or there have not been ways in which the people who have been holding these commitments have been able to come back to our site and report on it. And gaps in reporting make it more difficult to assess contribution towards specific targets and SDG 14 overall. What we have found is, in terms of who is making these commitments, the highest reporting commitments are from UN system entities. Next come civil society organizations, governments are 17% of them, and there are philanthropic organizations, 14% of those voluntary commitments are from philanthropic organizations. So I would like to make a call for those of you who haven't really made commitments or who have not found yourself falling under these categories, to please also make commitments, especially in light of the upcoming Ocean Conference. For instance, I see that academia is missing, and definitely philanthropic organizations can also make a special push towards these, towards the commitments, towards the Ocean Conference. And of course, as many of the speakers before mentioned, partnerships is key. Any entity cannot go it alone. So I also urge you to collaborate with others and then register your voluntary commitments, come up with voluntary commitments and register them online. Next slide, please. So what are some of the other lessons learned and challenges? We find that progress is not made at a scale that is large enough to make a real difference for the ocean and its biodiversity. Partnerships and networking are ways of scaling up successful initiatives and to bring in new ideas and develop capacity where it is needed. Sustainable, shock-proof and long-term funding is essential for achieving Goal 14. And future commitments should incorporate simple monitoring with a baseline and agreed upon metrics for easier assessment. So when we looked at these commitments closely, these are some of the things that we found were coming up as challenges. Those who had reported, even though there were few, what were some of the challenges that they faced were exactly this, especially sustainable funding, and as well as trying to look at progress after establishing a certain baseline. So when you are trying to make new commitments, you may want to keep these observations in mind, keep these lessons in mind when you actually deliver a commitment and register one. Next slide, please. Again, based on our assessment, and I don't want to go through this, through all of these or read them out in the interest of time, what we have found that there are certain target areas that require further attention. For instance, we find that there is a need to act more on looking at the different forms of pollution, such as nutrients and sewage. If you look at 14.3, developing further initiatives towards addressing ocean acidification, and in particular reduction of CO2 emissions is important. And we find that there aren't that many commitments, especially in our registry base, that have come forward with this. Another important one, which is also highlighted in our background note, which we drafted way back in 2020, is actually about awareness raising and education among policymakers on the importance of monitoring and addressing ocean acidification. Next slide, please. On 14.4, for instance, scaling up successful efforts towards fisheries sustainability is an important one where we need more commitments. Human rights issues related to fisheries is another important one, and so on and so forth. So we have much more information on what areas require, next slide please, what areas that that may require further intervention or attention in terms of commitments, if you will. And we urge you to really come forward with your commitments and recognize that no commitment is small, nothing is too big, and you can partner with as many commitments as possible. We in this DESA will try our best to make sure that they are reflected accurately. We'll try to follow through on the progress made. And please write to us in case you have some problems with registering your commitments here. Thank you. Next slide, please.
Thank you so much, Madhu, for that very thorough presentation, which we really hope serves to inspire all our participants who are joining us to come to the Ocean Conference with your new voluntary commitments, including around those critical issues that Madhu has outlined, where we need more action by all. Also, we encourage you to reach out to your governments, understand what are they bringing in concrete terms to the Ocean Conference, what commitments will your governments be making in Lisbon, and a push from your side in encouraging governments to come to Lisbon with new commitments. The reasons why we are collecting such detailed information about each commitment, while it may seem a bit tedious when registering, is that this information really allows us, the UN, to understand more thoroughly what these commitments are and how can they really make a collective impact. So thank you so much, Madhu, for those remarks. Madhu's presentation will also be shared with all participants, since there was quite a lot of information that Madhu shared. So without further ado, let me now introduce you to my colleagues, Catherine Good from the UN Non-Governmental Liaison Service, or UNGLS, and Nayara Costa, who's a Senior Sustainable Development Officer in our Division for Sustainable Development Goals in DESA, to now share more detailed information about stakeholder registration for the Ocean Conference. Catherine, Nayara, the floor is yours.
Thank you so very much, Lotta, and to all the participants of today's call. I see a very lively chat and Q&A box, and I hope Catherine is also taking a look at those. We will try to address as many of those as we can. Also, we are compiling those and we see that they are very relevant. So we will also be using the questions we are compiling to update our FAQs and our communications that are going out about the registration to stakeholders to attend the conference. I wonder, colleagues, if we can start with the slides. We have a few slides to share. So we have been talking about this, who can attend the 2022 UN Ocean Conference? And if we go to the modalities resolution that member states have agreed on, that defines the parameters of that list. For those that are non-governmental organizations and other stakeholders, the list is quite broad. This is, as Ambassador Thompson was reminding us, that there was this open, broad call from member states for stakeholders from different sectors to be represented at the conference. We have a dedicated page. You see the link over there where updates are published every time, and you can also double check if your organization qualifies for attending and for requesting registration to attend the conference. Can we go to the next one, please? So the first thing, organizations that are in consultative status with ECOSOC. First thing you need to see to check if is your organization in accredited to ECOSOC. There is a specific dedicated link for you to register to attend the 22 UN Ocean Conference. And we want to really alert you to use the correct link when you are requesting your registration, because if you apply through the wrong link, you may have your request rejected. So this is the very first one. Second, next slide, please. We have, as I mentioned, this conference has a number of lists of organizations that were previously accredited to past conferences and summits, but also there was a dedicated process of special accreditation just for the 22 UN Ocean Conference. Actually, there were 3 rounds of special accreditation. They were held in 2019, 2020, 2022, with huge thanks to our colleagues in UN and GLS, also to our colleagues in Global Compact for all the support. All the lists are published. You can check if you applied and if your organization has been approved. you will see there. I just want to recall that accreditation refers to the organization, the signals that your organization can request registration for participants to attend the conference. So registration is about the individuals that will be there, and every single individual that you expect to access the blue zone, what we call the conference venue, every one of them must be registered and have an approved registration. So, I received my letter saying that my organization is especially accredited. This is great. Next step, you need to follow up and register your representatives. So there were 3 rounds. You can check if your organization was approved in any of those. Next, please. Next slide. And then not only there were the 3 rounds of special accreditation, member states, they have also said, if your organization was accredited to any of those, I won't be reading all the lists. If your organization was accredited to any of those, you can also request registration. As you can see, we have really a huge number of organizations that are accredited that can request a registration of participants, and the registration is now open. Question that I've seen on the chat box: I was not accredited, can I still request accreditation? Unfortunately not, because this process has been already closed. What we usually advise is, for one, you can reach out to your government. Several governments, they include stakeholders in their national delegation. Or second, you should try to identify a partner organization that can support the registration of your participants as well. And at the website, you can click in every single meeting or conference or summit that we have on the list, and you can check for your organization if your organization is on the list. Next one, please. And this is the link for organizations that have been especially accredited. It is a different link from those that have been accredited to ECOSOC. So be mindful again that you need to really request registration through the appropriate link. I think this might be it from me, and I'll invite the experts supporting registration throughout the UN system. Catherine, over to you.
Thank you, Nayara. I can tell already from the chat that most people who have joined this briefing are already experts in registering for UN events and conferences. So I'll just walk you through this quickly. I'm Catherine Good, and I manage the Non-Governmental Liaison Service, which is now in the Department of Global Communications at the UN. And we're happy to be supporting this conference. There are just a couple of key messages that I'll share with you. The first is to, when you go to register, make sure you're in the correct portal. As Nayara said, there is ECOSOC accredited entities portal, and then there's a different Indico portal for those who were specially and previously accredited. Now, there are thousands of organizations in each of those portals. So when you first go in, you'll have to create an account if you don't have one in Indico already. And that's particular to you. And there you'll be able to see all of the events that you participated in. And then you'll click on the link for the correct portal, either ECOSOC accredited or specially previously accredited. And once you go to register there, you'll see a question: are you an NGO, or is your organization academic? Is it part of the private sector? And depending on how your organization identifies, you'll see that you can click that, and the drop-down list of all of the organizations that are eligible are there. If you believe that you are accredited and you don't see your organization listed, then you'll need to follow up either by the email for the Ocean Conference, which is on the website, or to ngls@un.org. And then once you find your organization, you'll have your personal identifying information to list in the registration form. It's pretty straightforward. And then you'll need to attach the letter from your organization. And that is the one thing that I think most people have questions on. What we require is that the head of the organization indicates in the letter the 3 people who are approved to represent the organization at the conference. And in that way, the organization just needs to create 1 letter with everyone listed in that, and then each person will need to create their own registration and register as an individual, but you can upload the same letter. And really, I think that that's it. I know that people have already registered and you're waiting for approvals, and that is in process. So we hope that beginning this week, you'll be able to start receiving your approvals. If not, a number of you may have received questions already for clarification. One of the big challenges we see is the date of birth. Please make sure you fill that out. We don't believe that people who were born tomorrow are registering, so you'll probably get an email if the date of birth isn't entered correctly. And other than that, I think that's really it, and we look forward to receiving your questions and your registrations. Thank you.
And I'd just add some points from this last slide. Again, everybody must pre-register. If you are working on a side event, everyone that you want to be in the side event must be registered to attend the conference. So far, we have this cap of 3 representatives per accredited organizations. I see a lot of comments and requests for this to be revisited. That's why we are keeping a close look at the numbers, because it's all about the numbers that can be fit in the space, and the numbers that can be safe managed internally. But we have our co-hosts here with us, and we will be flagging and keeping them updated on the numbers that we are receiving, and we'll be discussing any possibilities of further increasing. It all depends on the numbers that we receive. As Catherine was reinforcing, the list is very broad of organizations that are eligible to request registration. So that's why we need to have this balance. There are no day access for side events planned. So again, everybody must be properly registered to attend the conference. The deadline is 16 May 2002. And just a few reminds, registrations via email. If you send an email with your picture and all the data, it won't be approved. It won't be revised. We won't be uploading your data in Indico. You really need to follow the Indico platform. That's why, as Catherine was saying, start early as possible, so we can properly support you if you need some troubleshooting support. Inside, if you get to the Altice Arena on the 26th and you try to register, this won't be possible. You need to be registered before that. Incomplete registration, insufficient documentation will not be accepted. As Catherine was mentioning, we need to review every single application for registration. That's why it takes a little bit between you apply and we review. And if any member of your delegation withdraw from the registration, the person will need to go to Indico and withdraw, so you can add someone else. The system won't allow us to approve more if you already have 3 approved. So please do keep us posted on that. A few things. Also, accredited organizations, you need to go to the website and check the list. Only conferences that are listed there are eligible for the Ocean Conference. Oh, but I was approved for Stockholm Plus 50. I have just been accredited for the migration or for the PGA meeting. Unfortunately, those processes are not, those were not the processes that member states requested for the Ocean Conference. Ambassador Thompson has mentioned to us, we need to operate under the UN rules, the regulations, and what member states have called us, the lists are there on the web page. If you want to follow the conference virtually, there is no registration for those following the discussion that will be held virtually. It will be webcast. You will be able to join and follow anytime you want and need, and we will be making sure that the links are available and visible as the conference unfolds. Catherine, anything else we should point at this stage?
No, I think that's it. There are a lot of questions about side events, but again, if you want to attend the side events inside the blue zone, you'll have to be registered for the conference.
I saw some questions also about side events outside the blue zone. Outside the blue zone, the person doesn't need to be registered to attend the UN Ocean Conference. You have more flexibility to invite others that may not be assessing the Altis arena at the time. I think I will, they are asking for a template for the representation letter. I don't know if we have that. It's usually very simple and straightforward.
Yeah, it's really just a letter on the organization's letterhead from the president, CEO, head of the organization that says, you know, this person, and this person are approved to represent us.
Yeah, it's really simple, one page, to whom it may concern. This is the members of our delegation. This is very helpful, especially for big organizations. Sometimes you have members of your, colleagues around the world trying to register, but not necessarily they are the approved delegation. So we really need to make sure that those that are requesting registration, they really represent the accredited organizations. Colleagues, let me see. I see we have loads and loads of questions. I will go to check and we'll be inviting my colleagues. I see several questions about side events. I wonder if Lotta or Lineke could address some of the questions about side events. I see colleagues asking about when they are going to be informed. There are some other questions coming up. I'm just going to see if they can try to address a few of those while I go through the other questions that are coming through.
Sounds good, Nayara. Between Lineke and myself, we can take the side event related questions now.
So let me just flag a few about the side events. So yeah, if there are any any plans already about when the side events will be approved and when they will be informed.
Thank you on that, colleagues. We are reviewing side event requests that have already been submitted. We expect the first batch of approvals to go out this week to allow for organizations or the organizers to start preparing for their side events. The deadline for applications is 8 May. That will be the hard deadline. And we will be approving side events on a rolling basis up until 8 May. And then, of course, after 8 May, we will do the approvals of the last side events.
Thank you so much, Lotta. I see some questions about if there are costs for those applying for side events, and if also if there is any equipment that is offered for those hosting side events. And perhaps just before you go, Lotta, I will ask Lineke or colleagues to please post the FAQ for side events, because several of those questions may be already addressed there.
Thank you. Yes, colleagues, do refer to the frequently asked questions that we have made available on side events. And I'm hoping that most of these questions, you can find direct answers in those FAQs. But very shortly regarding costs, as mentioned, side events can be held inside the Altis arena. And for those side events, there are no associated costs. For side events that may be held outside of the Altis arena, there may be some costs depending on your location that you have selected. And these costs would be the organizers your responsibility to cover. For basic equipment that is provided inside the Altice arena, we are making available basic equipment in the side event rooms. For the outside locations, again, it is between you and the outside venue provider to discuss and agree on what special equipment, if any, you will need and perhaps can be provided by the outside venue organizers. Thank you. And just to mention, of course, we are also accepting virtual side event applications. Those virtual side events will be made available as all other side events on the conference website, on the list of side events that we will be providing, the program of side events that we will be providing. The virtual side events would need to be hosted by the organizers on your platform of choice. And you would be responsible for any potential costs, any technical support, etc. for your virtual side event. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lotta. I see, colleagues, I see a few questions about the slides. The slides will be shared with all who registered to attend the webinar, and it will also be posted online as well as the recording to this call if you need to revisit or if you need to share the information with others. I see also on side events a few things. So at least one of the organizations must be accredited when you are submitting your requests. At least one of them must be duly accredited to request the side event. If you are, or I see questions about outside side events organized outside the blue zone. There is a list of potential venues that are that is featured in the website. However, I see a question about if they need to stick to those venues. No, if you are organizing a side event outside of the blue zone and you want to apply and it's not in one of those, that's not a problem. You should go ahead and apply, and if it's approved, it will be featured in the conferences program. Again, a huge question I have: to whom side events are open? To all those that are attending the conference at the blue zone up to the capacity of the meeting room. So those are the ones who those are your targeted audience, and you really need to make sure that your speakers, proposed speakers, and supporting staff is duly registered to attend the conference.
Nayara, I saw a question, sorry to be jumping in. Colleagues asked, what is the blue zone? Now, blue zone is by blue zone, we mean the official venue. So in this case, it is the Altice Arena. And to enter the Altice Arena, to go inside the so-called blue zone, any participant would need to have a UN-issued conference badge. And this is really why we have to do the registration. So we registered detailed information of all of those who want to go inside the venue, who need to have a UN-issued badge to enter, and who will be allowed by UN security to go inside that premise. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Lotta. I will just move on to some other topics, and Lotta, please feel free to jump in, and any colleagues as well, if you see questions you want to address. There are questions about the special events. I want to flag to colleagues that the special events are they're organized separately, and there will be separate registration processes. So if you are interested in any of them, please check the website, check the information, do your registration whenever it's open, if they open. So each one has its own structure, format, target audience. So please do check the special events page as information will be updated over there as the events are advance on the planning. Sergio, I see we are receiving some questions about visas, just in terms of if there are any efforts to support visa. Colleagues, when you apply, you will be receiving a letter confirming that your registration is approved, and this letter can be used to request a visa if this applies to you. But perhaps, Sergio, you could also, if you could, just add any additional information on visa that, if at all possible.
Thank you, Nayara. Not much to add. That is correct. That letter of confirmation of registration can be used to support visa application. It's not in itself something that will be sufficient for the issuing of the visa, and I think it's important that everyone applying is aware of that. In addition to that, we'll be making available, I don't know if it's already on the website, but we share with colleagues internally a couple of very basic information on the process for visa application and where to consult information regarding whether or not, depending on your nationality, where in which cases you need to apply for a visa and in which cases you don't. So I think that information, if it's not available today, will be available in the coming days. And I think I will just add, since I have the floor, I saw a few questions regarding COVID protocols and rules. Obviously, as we have been learning over the past 2 years, these rules change, they evolve depending on how the pandemic evolves. But as of now, as of today, the rules applying in Portugal require you to present upon entry in the country proof of vaccination or a negative test. But I think that information or a link to that information is already on the website, and if it's not, it will be soon. And I also saw someone putting the link in the chat, so it's there somewhere. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Sergio, for that. I'm seeing several questions asking for a template for the letter of representation. We will be working on that, and we'll be uploading to the website and the FAQ about registration. I think this might be helpful for colleagues, so you feel confident when you are submitting your registration that information is properly captured. There was another, I see some questions about, can I swap my badges between my delegation? Unfortunately not. The registration is really personal. It's the individual that receives the approved registration to attend the conference. We most likely will have systems in place for secondary passes so you can access the meeting rooms, because we will be also, as Sergio was saying, we are operating also in a very uncertain times, considering also the health situation. So there will be limits of numbers inside each of the meeting rooms. So there might be secondary passes after you are inside the Altice Arena, the conference venue, the blue zone that now everybody knows what it is. So there will be systems, if it is needed, there will be systems in place to distribute secondary passes with the registered participants. We will be communicating directly with the registered participants as the process evolves, so you have everything that you need to properly plan your access to the conference. And I saw another question. When you register for the whole conference. We are not doing registration for 2 days or 3 days or 1 day or the last day. So when you register, registration is valid for the whole duration of the Ocean Conference. Let me see, any colleagues were tracking questions. I know we have 5 minutes. And again, I want to thank colleagues for all the questions. This is extremely helpful for us because we keep updating and adjusting the FAQ, and we will be revisiting your questions during the week so we can properly update our FAQs, and because your questions are also questions that are others are raising to us through our dedicated email. I see a question about the green zone. I think green zones are more specific to the UNFCCC, to the COP processes. I don't think we have this, looking at my colleagues, I don't think we have the systems in place for the ocean conference. So colleagues will have access to the meeting venue, and then there'll be meetings, events happening around, right? Lotta, I saw you unmuted.
You're correct, Nayara. For the UN General Assembly conferences, we do not have green zones per se. I saw a question just now in the chat box. Where do people go on the 27th of June when they arrive? Colleagues, the UN Secretariat will prepare a detailed participant guide with clear instructions to all different categories of participants, how to access the venue, where to collect your UN conference ID, where to go, etc. This note is being prepared. It will be posted on the conference website, and it will be shortly accessible. But a quick answer to your question is, when you first arrive to the conference venue, you need to go to the UN Registration Center to collect your UN Conference ID badge. Thank you.
Colleagues, I see a lot of additional questions, but unfortunately, we are running out short of time. But still, we are compiling your questions. We will try to address those that we didn't manage to do in person, but perhaps we really need to close. So I will hand over the floor to Lotta for the closing remarks. Thank you very much again to all for joining.
Colleagues, thank you so much for everyone and really for highlighting to us the questions that you have. These questions, as Nayara said, we will go through each and every one of them that have been posted in the chat box, and we will be updating our frequently asked questions to address some questions that you have and that we have not yet addressed properly. So please continue to visit the frequently asked questions link that has been shared in the chat box, and that is also available on the website. And if you still continue to have concerns and questions, you need additional clarification, please send us an email to the dedicated email address we have. I'm asking my colleagues to put it in the chat box. And again, we will be able to hopefully clarify those issues. So colleagues, let me now really say a warm thank you to Ambassador Thompson, to Lily, to Sergio, to my colleague Madhu, and of course Nayara and Catherine for your participation in this webinar. I think it has been a tremendously informative 1.5 hours. Or 1 hour 45 minutes, and we have all learned a lot. Please continue everyone to visit the conference website, which has the latest information. We will be making this recording available to those that did not join us, but who are interested in hearing the information that was shared. And finally, we really look forward to seeing all of you in Lisbon. And coming to Lisbon with your new concrete voluntary commitments, and with you also encouraging your governments to come to Lisbon with new commitments in support of SDG 14. Thank you so much, everyone. And this meeting is now adjourned.